All right, everybody. Good morning. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining us. For those who don't know me, my name is Blake. I am the East Valley Sales Manager with Clear Title. Today, we are excited to welcome Tiffannie Hobgood. She's a respected leader in the escrow and title industry. She's got more than 30 years of experience supporting our real estate agents and clients as a Vice President of Operational Growth at Clear Title Agency and a past president at both the state and national escrow associations. Tiffannie is known for making escrow and title approachable, practical, and relevant for agents in the field. Tiffannie has spent her career helping agents navigate complex transactions, avoid deal-killing surprises, and understand what's happening behind the scenes so they can show up confidently for their clients. From fraud prevention to smoother closings and creative problem solving, her focus is always on protecting your reputation, strengthening trust, and helping you deliver a standout client experience. Tiffannie, it's so great to have you this morning. I'll let you take it away from here.
Wow, Blake, thank you so much for that great introduction. As he said, my name is Tiffannie Hobgood. I'm very excited to be here today so we can talk about today's wonderful topics. We're going to dive right in here to today's agenda, and we're going to talk a little bit about fraud statistics, fraud trends impacting real estate, securing communication with the consumer, and how your partnership with Clear Title protects you, the consumer, and your reputation. Now, throughout this presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A and, of course, the chat feature. And we'll be sure to answer any questions throughout. So let's dive right in. Make sure you have some pen and paper because I'm sure there's going to be a nugget or two that you'll want to take away here today. So the scale of the problem. Cybercrime is a major and growing problem. It's a $1 billion problem in real estate, to be precise. Of those targeted, 1 in 20 become a victim. The number of fraud attempts is rapidly growing, around 4 times each year. With AI, the attempts are getting more sophisticated and much harder to detect. The financial impact is staggering, with annual losses from email scams reaching $2.8 billion. Losses for 2024 exceeded $16 billion, with over 859,000 complaints. And those are just the actual complaints that were filed. Law enforcement believe that only 2 to 6.7% of victims actually file their losses. Can you imagine what those numbers would be if everyone actually reported? So let's review some stats from 2024 for just Arizona. And keep in mind that only 2 to 6.7% of victims actually file as I go through these stats. IC3 for Arizona is ranked in the top 10 for reported loss amounts. The FTC reports 337 million in losses statewide. That's up 384% since 2020. The FBI reports 392 million in cyber-enabled crimes, and that's up 444% since 2020. This data highlights the vast scale and severity of cybercrime threats facing individuals and organizations. But our protections are strong, and we're making them stronger. These attacks keep evolving, which is exactly why Clear Title keeps evolving their safeguards to keep you, your clients, protected. Now, let's talk about why real estate is squarely in the crosshairs of these fraudsters. Imposter sellers. They have always been a threat, and they're more and more and more today. So vacant land has been a big target for many, many years, but it's not the only thing that imposter sellers are targeting. They're also targeting non-owner occupied properties, vacant properties, unencumbered properties, slightly encumbered properties, and also in today's landscape, we have to look at cash out refinances. So today's seller impersonation is much more sophisticated with AI, with deepfakes, and the use of synthetic identities. They have real information of the property owners. In some cases, they have actual IDs. They've just changed some of the information, just the photo, the signature. They have social security numbers and personal information to portray these actual owners of the properties. A recent stat shows that impersonation tactics saw a staggering 1,400% increase year over year between 2024 and 2025, leveraging AI, deepfakes, and synthetic identities. That's really big. When I saw that stat just this week, I was absolutely blown away by that increase. But it doesn't surprise me in everything that we've seen with imposter sellers that we come across every single day. So let's talk a little bit about wire fraud. Wire fraud is coming back, and it's coming back big time. 71% of consumers believe that it's someone else's responsibility to educate them. And that's where we, the realtor, the education, the escrow professional, and the lenders partner in this transaction to make sure that the consumer is well educated. So let's talk about a couple different forms of wire fraud. Fraudulent wiring instructions. That's where the fraudster impersonates legitimate parties in redirecting funds. A new form of wire fraud are what are called ghost agencies. This is where a seller, an imposter seller, obtains a bona fide buyer on a property that they don't own. They'll have you write a contract. Maybe you'll select your preferred partner, or potentially the imposter seller will recommend a title partner, or they'll counter for their title partner. But that title partner doesn't exist. They'll lead you to a phone number or maybe a website that they have created with AI. In today's environment with AI, it's very easy to create a website within minutes that looks very legitimate. The fraudsters will answer the phone. They will send you wiring instructions. We're going to talk a little bit about email spoofing in a little bit, and phishing, where they'll try and get credentials. We're going to talk about that as well. But they're going to lead you to websites where they're going to ask you to deposit earnest money. They're going to send you fraudulent wire instructions. We're going to ask you to deposit earnest money. So it's really important that you're working with a trusted, known partner, and you're validating and verifying wiring instructions. These ghost agencies, this is their first attempt to be able to get money from a bona fide party when they're an imposter seller. The second way, urgent payment request. This is pressure tactics where they're trying to get funds. So it's a reminder to all of us that we need to make sure that we're informing the consumer that they will be fatigued by the amount of emails they're receiving throughout the transaction. Email is still a big part of what we do in our industry and the communication that we utilize, but a fraudster knows that. So they're going to insert themselves when they know that it's time, usually about a week or so before closing, and they're going to dupe as a fraudster and insert themselves through spoofing, where they're going to pretend to be a trusted party in the transaction and pressure them and say, hey, if you don't send your money today, you're not going to get your house. And of course, that buyer, they're tied to that property. This is their home. They're going to really want that. So they're going to go and send their money and not even think twice. So as a reminder, make sure that they call that trusted number to their escrow professional before they send their wires, their funds, always before you send your funds. And the third one, now this one keeps me up at night. If you've not heard of this one yet, payoff wire fraud. These are fake payoffs, either totally fake payoff statements or payoff statements where the wire instructions have been altered. Some payoff statements are received through eFax, and eFax is not secure because it's coming through the email system. And so fraudsters will capture those statements and alter the wire instructions and then continue them on. So as your title professional, we need to validate and verify those instructions just to make sure that the information we've received is accurate. But what's even scarier about this is we don't have a seller who's waiting for those funds. They're looking for those, why are we know right away if for some reason they weren't received? It could be weeks, it could be months before we know that the funds weren't received. It's imperative to be able to catch wire fraud within the first 24 hours. And if we don't know about this for months, those funds could never be recoverable. It could be not until the actual owner of the property, whether it's someone who refinanced or the new buyer, gets some kind of a foreclosure notice, that no one's aware that those payoff funds were never received by the actual lender. So next, let's talk about red flags of seller impersonation. So there's a lot of them. We're really accustomed to quick closings. That's not uncommon in today's landscape. For us to get a quick closing, we don't question it, and we just move forward. However, that is definitely a red flag in today's seller impersonation market. Lots of other red flags that could also be explained in very legitimate situations. But let's go through what they all are, and then I'm going to give you a fraud story, and I want you to count how many red flags you see. So only communicating by email or text. When they won't have a face-to-face or a video communication with you, that can absolutely be a red flag. Now, are there people who are absolutely busy and they just want to communicate that way, or that maybe is their communication style? Yes, but can we still find a way to maybe have a phone call with them, or maybe get a video with them? Yes, I think there is a way you could probably still be able to do that, or get in front of them and have a belly-to-belly conversation. I think so. They will sell the property quick for cash, urgency to sell. There's some emotional reason why they need to sell the property. They maybe have a sick family member. They need the money for some reason. They're going to pull and tug at heartstrings for a reason why they need to sell this property. They want to use their own notary. They've got a reason why they can only use a particular notary, or they can't go to a notary, or they don't want a notary to visit them, maybe in their home or their business. There is definitely a reason why title companies like to use vetted, known notaries, because there are practices in place. And a notary can go and order a stamp on Amazon, and fraudsters will just order a notary stamp, and they will could use known notary stamps from like me, I'm a notary. They can use my information. They can see it in public records, a stamp, and just order one from Amazon. And now they are using my stamp as fraudulently. They'll also have some reason to not be available. They're too busy. They're out of town, which we'll talk about that in a minute. They've got some reason to be unavailable, to not meet with you, to not have a phone call, to not do the things that you're asking for to validate and verify that they are a person. They're traveling. Now, do we all travel? Yes. We like to go on vacation. We like to spend time with our family. We like to have that time away to rest. But this is a known thing with imposter sellers, that they're traveling either inside or outside the United States. So that is another red flag for us. This one is a new one, recent changes to entity documents. A very easy thing to do with the Secretaries of State is you can go right online and change the members, the managers, whoever can sign on behalf of the entity. So as your title professional, we're going to ask for confirmation, validation, verification on who has the authority to sign. And when we get pushback and we don't want to provide you with that, why are you asking for that? We can't give you that. That is definitely a red flag. Any entity should be able to provide backup proof documentation as to who the signing members is, why there's been recent changes, or have members or managers sign off on who has authority to sign. So I'm going to give you a quick little story. Keep track of how many red flags you might hear. So we have a commercial transaction. And by the way, commercial is not exempt from seller impersonation. They also have that happening. It's a commercial piece of vacant land owned by two individuals who are not married to one another. Transaction opens with a bona fide buyer, and we have one of the sellers who is communicating in the beginning. Transaction moves along about 2 to 3 weeks before closing. The one seller who's been in communication tells us that the second seller is very ill. They are in the hospital. and they cannot have a notary come to them. The hospital has their own notary, and we are to use that notary and send the documents directly to the hospital. So of course, we ask for the hospital's name, the notary's name, and their phone number, so that an email address so that we can reach out and contact the parties and do our due diligence to find out, is this real, is this not real? Because of course there are instances where this could be, right? So we call the hospital, first of all. They do not have an in-house notary. We then call the notary. Of course, the phone number they gave us is a fraudster, because we have ways that we can look up to find the actual phone numbers for notaries. We contact the real notary and ask them if he's had any knowledge that his notary might have been compromised. That notary tells us that, yes, as a matter of fact, he has an open case with his local attorney general. We then connect his attorney general with our attorney general. There's now an open fraud case. So that's just one example of a seller impersonation, and how if you look at the red flags and not avoid them and pull the pieces apart, you can determine whether or not a transaction is real or seller impersonation. So just allow your escrow professional to pull those apart and look through it and confirm whether we're dealing with the rightful parties in the transaction. So now let's talk about how a fraudster might be able to insert themselves either in your transaction or with the consumer for some fraud. Do we have any questions, Gabe, that we might be able to stop and answer before we do that?
Thanks for checking, Tiffany, but question board looks empty right now.
Okay, well,
All
if you
right.
have any, make sure you're using that Q&A and we'll get those answered for you. Okay, let's talk about the email threat landscape. Our fraudsters love to lurk in email. There's lots of different ways that fraudsters like to do this. I mean, talking about email, this could be a whole session in itself, but there's different ways that like to do that. And the complexity of it and the way that it's advancing from day to day changes. So we're just going to kind of touch on this so you can kind of know the different types in case you don't. There is social engineering. This is the human piece of it. They really try and gain access to information, but they're usually pretending to be a known person or someone of authority, where they're trying to, one example that I will use, it's probably not the best example, but I'll use it, is if someone's trying to be your boss, trying to get your phone number, and then they'll text you and then they'll want you to go buy gift cards. That could be an example of that. Spoofing. Spoofing is another technique where they impersonate by email addresses and domains. I've used that a little bit when I've talked about the wire fraud situation. It happens a lot with spoofing techniques, but that's where they falsify identities and domains. So if you get an email, the links in there. If there's ever a link in an email, make sure you're hovering over it. See where it's going. When you hover over a link, it will tell you the website that it's going to. Is that an expected website? Or just go to the website yourself directly to the known website that you know, because it might take you there. Might be looking for credentials. It might be going to a site where it's leading you to do something, always looking for something. Spoofing also is a way where you get an email address that looks like it's from me. It's got my signature line on it. Maybe it says my name at the top. But if you look at the email address that's next to it, or when you forward or click on it, it's actually not thobgood@cleartitleaz.com. It might be thobgood.cleartitle@gmail.com, for example. They'll always spoof it some way, but the consumers aren't paying a close enough attention to see that that email address isn't legitimate. They just see the signature line and they see that I'm sending them wiring instructions and asking them to wire funds, and they move along. But they usually will spoof someone that's involved in the transaction and trying to get them to do something, send funds, do something else, gain trust from the parties. And then of course there's phishing. Phishing is a method with deceptive links, fraudulent requests. They try and get some type of sensitive information, usually credentials, where they can download, malware onto your computer, or get your credentials like your email and password to your bank account, to your social media accounts. Usually, if you ever click on a link and it starts to ask you for login, immediately stop. Is that what you intended to do? That usually is a phishing attempt. Interesting stat is that Gen AI assisted phishing emails had a 54% click-through rate, which was significantly higher than a human generated email, which had a 12% click-through rate. So AI has got our number. It can definitely get us to interact with it much more than human written emails can. I thought that was very, very interesting. So we just need to make sure that we're staying educated and recognize these types of email threats. Always be cautiously suspicious whenever you get anything that looks like you weren't expecting it or could be from a potential fraudster. So let's dive in a little bit into email and what we can do to try and protect ourselves, because email is a critical part of how we communicate and do business today. And we're not going to stop doing that. We just need to learn different ways that we can protect ourselves. So if you're not using a company provided email, using maybe a free type of email service for yourself, then what can you do to protect yourself and your consumers from potential risks in your account? Let's just talk about a couple of key ways you can do that. The first one is email filtering. Adding some type of advanced spam detection or blocking of malicious emails. So check and see if the email provider that you're using has that built into it, or if there's some type of software or something that you can purchase that would help you be able to do that with your emails. The second one is strong authentication. Use multi-factor authentication, where you get a code or a password or something that helps you add a second layer of protection. This makes it harder for someone to, if they sold your password, to be able to get into the account because it's looking for that second factor authentication. Also, make sure you're using strong passwords, passphrases, passkeys for your passwords. I recently was talking with a gentleman and he gave me a really cool new words on passwords or passphrases to use your password as a verb, an adjective, and a noun. So an example would be like flying purple dragon. And of course, using uppercase, lowercase, and then, like special characters. Those would be harder for a fraudster to be able to guess for you. And of course, make sure you're using password managers and don't use your same password for your email, your bank account, your social media. Make sure you have different passwords for the different ones. So once a fraudster gets into one, they're going to start looking to see if it matches any other accounts that they can maybe see. And then, of course, finally, monitoring. Stay regularly monitoring your email accounts. Look and see, are there any forwards that have happened? Are there any folders that are set up? Because a fraudster is going to just silently lurk in your email potentially once they gain access to it for a while, see what kind of activity is happening in there. And then once they see something, they're going to set up some rules and potentially just start forwarding emails that you won't ever see, know you're not missing, and then they'll start spoofing people as if they're you. So it's kind of scary, but it's happened. So anything you can do is just monitor, see what's happening, look at your email, pay attention very closely on what's happening there. So staying on top of potential issues is just key to keeping your email on lockdown and keeping everyone safe. So what are some additional ways that you can secure your communication? This slide in itself could be an entire presentation. So we're just going to touch on a couple things that you can think about in securing communication. Some best practices, if you will. So device security, keeping your systems updated and protected with antivirus software. So strong passwords, biometrics, are things that you can do to help keep your device secure. Regularly backing up your device, it's important to keep it secure and encrypted. Using encrypted platforms when securing your files and your documents. And VPN, I cannot stress this one enough. When you're connecting to public Wi-Fi's, like if you're at a coffee shop and you're working, if you're traveling and you're at a hotel and you're using their public Wi-Fi and not your own maybe hotspot, make sure that you are utilizing some type of a VPN to secure your connection so that a fraudster isn't able to gain connection to your computer and either put some type of malware on it or start downloading some sensitive files from your computer, because in those public Wi-Fi's, they can absolutely gain access to your computer if you're on it and they're on it as well. You'll want to limit access control. So restrict who has authorization for certain documents or do role permissions to gain access. And of course, education is power. Keep up on the latest threats and best practices. And of course, if you have any mobile devices, although it's not up here, updating your devices regularly with any of those security releases are vital in making sure that you get the best protection on any of your mobile devices. So if you just take one of these 6 items here today away, then you've made your communication more safe and secure. So think about that. Is there one thing that you could implement today that would be easy, that can make your communication more safe and secure? So how do we at Clear Title protect you from all of this that we've talked about today? Well, the same way we always have, just better. We've taken every security layer, every verification step, every protection we built over the years, and streamlined it into one simple, secure platform. Same commitment, same expertise, now easier for everyone. Clear Title made a strategic alignment with Closing Lock. It's a simple link to access one platform for all of your closing needs. So we're very excited to be able to share this with you today. Everything you need is in one place. All your e-signing documents, the opening packages for the buyer and the seller, any additional documents that maybe you or the buyer and seller need to sign throughout the transaction will be right here in one platform. The document exchange, we talked about potentially entity documents needed, or maybe there's a death certificate that needs to be shared. Any documents that the consumer needs to share can be done right here through this platform. Identity verification. We talked about the importance of needing to validate and verify we're working with the rightful parties in the transaction. We will be doing identity verification right here through Closing Lock. Good funds payments. You can receive earnest money deposits and cash to close up to a total of earnest money and cash to close of $500,000 right here through Closing Lock. Wire instruction exchange. We're going to be sending our wiring instructions, and the seller can also send their wiring instructions to us safely and securely through the Closing Lock platform. I'm going to get into a little bit more in detail on these here in just a second in the next slide as well. And then payoff verification. We talked about that payoff wire fraud. We've always been verifying and validating wire instructions. We've just been doing it verbally. This is a platform that now allows us to validate and verify those right through this platform. This is about giving you and your clients some confidence, clarity, and convenience all in one place. Now, I want to highlight these 3. Each of these are money transfer type transactions. Through Closing Lock, these transactions have up to a $5 million worth of fraud insurance. That sounds really cool, right? But what does that mean for you and your clients? So let's go through these 3 in detail. So good fund payments. So if the consumer opts to send their earnest money deposit or their cash to close up to $500,000, up to $500,000 total between the two, through Closing Lock, there is a small fee for them to do that. If they can opt to go to their bank and send the funds to as a wire transfer. but they can opt to do it right here through this platform, quick and easy. They're already in here and not have to go to the bank and issue a wire transfer. It also comes with a backing of wire fraud insurance. I would want that. I'd want the convenience of being able to do that and have it be protected. So this gives them that peace of mind. The wire instructions, obviously they're going to get them through here, but for the seller, what this does is allows them to link their account through Plaid, pulls their information right in, and they are able to also have that up to $5 million in coverage of wire fraud protection for their proceeds when we send those out to them from wire. Now, if they opt to manually enter their bank information and they have not yet completed the ID validation, they will need to complete the ID validation to have that wire fraud protection. But of course, we always want to make sure we're working with the rightful owners. So ID validation should have already been done. But in case it hasn't, we're going to ask them to complete that so they can have the $5 million worth of coverage. And then of course, we have the payoff verification. So once we have that payoff verification done, it also has that $5 million with coverage backing. So anything and everything that's validated and verified through the Closing Lock platform has that wonderful fraud insurance backing. That makes me feel good. I think that would make you feel good. And I know it would make your consumers feel really, really great. So our protection strategies here are to stay vigilant against wire fraud attempts, to implement robust email and communication measures, to stay informed and be strategic. Align your closing partnership to keep your transaction safe and secure. Because here's the truth. One compromised transaction could damage a reputation you've spent years building. Our process at Clear Title is the shield that stands between you and those threats. We handle the vulnerabilities so you can focus on what you do best. Knowing your clients and your credibility are protected every single time. So I want to thank you for your time today. So do we have any questions, Gabe?
Right now, we do not have any questions,
Well,
but we'll keep an eye on it.
All right. Well, there's any questions, feel free to pop those in. We'll take any last minute questions, but otherwise, I just really want to thank you guys so much for being here. I hope that you guys took away at least a couple nuggets today. Maybe the fraud things came in as a surprise, or maybe give you a little bit of, heart palpitations. That's kind of what I always like to do, is give you a little bit to think about when it comes to that. But otherwise, we just want to thank you for being here. It is our pleasure to help you and secure. Oh, we do have a question. Yay.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So it says, so are there really no fail safes to protect ourselves or our clients?
Fail safes. So I guess I have a question on what you mean by fail safe. I mean, a fail safe in what respect? As far as like seller impersonations, email spoofing?
Follow up to that question says, nothing that is ironclad.
I don't know that there's anything that's ironclad, but I think the more you can protect yourself, the more you have in place, the more questions you ask, the more due diligence that you're doing, then you are definitely protecting yourself. And align yourself with people who also have those protections in place. I mean, Clear Title is doing anything and everything they can to help protect you as the realtor as well. We've got it all laid out. So if you are aligning yourself to help protect you and your reputation, then you're doing what you can. I think, and the email, right? The email is the biggest piece too, because sometimes it starts at the beginning. But help us help you, because that's what we want to do as well. Certainly, we'd love to have a conversation with whoever that is, see how we can help you, if there's anything else that we can be doing. So that's a great question, though. It's a great, great question. So thank you for that. Okay, anything else, Gabe?
Nothing right now.
Okay.
It looks
Wonderful.
good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys all so much for your time today. If there's anything else we can do for you, please reach out. Let us know how Clear Title can help you today.